Welcome to Deerfield Fantasy Football. I am your host at Hop BFF with 2 P's. Christopher Hopper. I'm not sure if I've said my actual name in probably like 4 or 5 weeks. It's just been my Twitter handle.
So, I feel like we haven't name dropped ourselves in a pretty long time, and people were like, "I wonder what his first name is."
Yeah. So hi, I'm Kris, joined by Dan at the BFF. Dan, how are you? How are we doing?
As we were discussing before the show, and as I tweeted out the link to the live stream, damn sweating bullets. Like, I gotta survive 15 points or less from Lockett, 15 or less from Metcalf, while Russell Wilson somehow scores over like 20 total now because their games got IDP players, and this has kind of been a disgusting game just based off of a play-by-play overview. So you might hear some Gurley screams or something later on if something doesn't happen the way I want it to.
Or happens the way you want it to, I guess.
Yes.
Hey, you can see our beautiful faces on YouTube at Deerfield Fantasy Football. You can also find us on Facebook, where I'm pretty sure we don't post anything. We're also on Twitter, Instagram, Untapped at BeerfieldFF. Although, better content on our personal pages at 3BFF and at Hot BFF with 2 P's. Yep, Sunday live shows here every Sunday at 11-ish. So please show up for those. They're more fun that way. And yeah, normally this is where we do the winner of the week, but apparently Fantasy Pros was off today or something because there's nothing up yet for week 10.
That makes sense. It is Veterans Day. Shout out to those that have served. Thank you for your service. We appreciate everything that you do. But yeah. I'm assuming that's why there's nothing up there.
I'm assuming so. So we'll catch up on that anyway. I had at least 3 people in tonight's game that were writing on this regardless. So
yes,
normally when that happens, or 3 things writing tonight's game, and normally when that happens, it's just easier to carry till Wednesday. So we'll carry that till Wednesday. Let's go ahead and talk about what's fueling Beerfield, and then before we get into the news, I want to have a little commish discussion.
What's fueling Beerfield?
All right, Dan, what do you got?
I am drinking Old Bakery's Carrot Cake Brown Ale. You can see the can there. It pours of a dark amber color, as you see here. I will give my thoughts on this beer later on in the show.
All right, and I am drinking Belle Meade's Madeira Cask aged bourbon. It's also signed by the master distiller. I picked this particular bottle up when I was in Colorado. It is a limited release, but it's just bourbon aged in Madeira oak casks. So I normally drink these neat, but I just put a few drops of water in this one to try to open it up some. It's been kind of sitting down there for a little bit, and she had a little bit of heat to her, so wanted to needed to calm that down some for me to get an honest taste off of it. So we'll let you know what we think about those about midway through the show. Before we get into news and injuries and anything, there's a what would be a situation with other people. I don't think it'll be a situation for you, but want to get commissioner thoughts on something that a situation that we're going to be in. Right, so to go ahead and set the table, I made a trade this morning. I am in Dan in his Dynasty League. I am a rebuilding team, a very, very much rebuilding team. That was trying to sell off Emmanuel Sanders, or did actually. And the trade made was Emmanuel Sanders for Antonio Callaway and a 3rd-round pick. The trade was agreed to. It was sent over to the commissioner. There was a holdup because of the way that ESPN works. Believe the person I traded with has an ineligible player in the IR spot and can't fix that until Monday when he can move rosters around. And now Emmanuel Sanders is hurt and is out for the rest of the game. So, Dan, as a commissioner, with a trade that is agreed to in principle by both parties, it's been communicated to you, they got held up with the technicality, and I'm not saying this is going to happen for us because I don't think it will, but if the other agreeing party that was receiving Sanders goes to back out of this trade, how do you handle that, or how do you navigate those waters as a commissioner?
Oh man, thankfully I haven't actually had to deal with this before in the 9 years I've ran this league from redraft to auction to dynasty. I think you gotta talk with both parties, see where there's common ground. If this is a redraft league, I think this is far more difficult. Dynasty, you can still I think in Dynasty, I think you have to honor the original deal. Unless both parties agree that it's okay to back out of the deal, then I think you have to honor the deal. I think you have to honor the original deal if at least one person says no. Like, let's say in your case, because you are trading away said injured player, but in the game before the trade was actually completed played.
Basically, under normal circumstances, this is a trade that would have been pushed through if it weren't for the ESPN limitation. We don't have a veto period set up in the league or anything like that. That would have gotten pushed through this morning normally.
Yes. This is the issue. This is also the issue to those commissioners out there of new and old, where trades happen midweek. And by midweek, I mean by a player playing on Monday night that would have probably been played. Well, I don't say probably been played. I don't think you would have played them. But that's where, that's where issues come arise. I could maybe get into the league manager tools and shift Ian's roster around, but I feel like that's also going against.
It is, and
so.
Yeah, it is going against that, and with it being Dynasty, it's different, and then it's a little different not knowing the severity. He could have just been dinged up and be back next week. It is Sanders. It is one of those deals where you're trading a guy that's probably a rental to a competing team for a dart throw and draft capital and what figures to be at least a somewhat deep class next year. So it's just one of those interesting things I wanted to get do a little commissioner's corner and get your thoughts on, because that is something that I do know other people encounter, and like I said, I don't think it'll be an issue for us. But
no, I don't think so. I think if we weren't all friends,
I don't think it'll be an issue for us. But that is something that people could encounter, and I agree with you. I think in Dynasty that you have to honor the initial trade, because it was made with things are as they were this morning, and agreed upon what you knew then. And now that there's additional information, I don't know that a technical glitch should be reason to back out.
No. Like, for me, it'll always fall on to if both parties agreed that you can redo the trade.
Yeah.
I think that's okay. I think before you do it, you have to communicate it to the league. I think if you run a league and you're not transparent with your other owners in said league, it creates a lot of this behind the scenes feel, and you don't obviously want to create that when you're running a league. So if this happens, you and Ian decide to say no, let's back out. I let the league know, give them some time to say any feedback, and then reverse the trade.
Yeah,
I think that's the best way to go about it.
Yep. So I don't think we'll run into that. If we do, we'll deal with it then. All right. Mm-hmm. All right, let's go ahead and get into the news.
News.
So Seattle scored.
Yeah, it was Chris
Carson. Sorry,
I'm
hoping to get a Gurley scream off of what?
It was off another clowny sack fumble.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he's having a game.
Nice.
He's having a pretty good game.
All right. Cliff Kingsbury admits David Johnson has, quote, obviously been hampered by back and ankle injuries this season. And he looked noticeably slow on Sunday. I don't know if you got to see him. Nate Hamilton made a tweet about this, and I'm glad I'm not the only one that noticed it, but he looked like he had no explosiveness to him at all.
Then shut him down.
Yeah, he needs to be shut down because he's obviously still not right. You traded for Kenyon Drake. Go ahead and run Kenyon Drake. You're not in playoff contention. See what you have in Drake, and let Johnson get right, but he is not right.
it's shocking to me that this, like, he's been hurt, I think, the entire year. I feel like he hasn't been healthy at all.
Right.
And to not shut him down, to not try to at least protect what is right now your future RB1 on your roster, it's mind-boggling to me, especially after trading for Kenyon Drake, which to me seemed like they were gonna shut down Johnson, let Drake take over, and of course that didn't happen.
Right. So, situation to keep an eye on. He is still dealing with back and ankle issues, but he did not look right.
Yeah. Oh boy, and they don't have an out on him until 2021, so he literally is your future.
There. You got to protect him at that point.
Yep.
Dwayne Haskins is going to remain the Redskins starter for the rest of the season. Good on them. This is what needs to happen. It's another team that's clearly not in playoff contention. You know it's not Case Keenum. You know it's not Colt McCoy. You got to see what you have in Dwayne Haskins going into a deep quarterback draft class where you're going to have a lot of quarterbacks available to you.
I mean, he seems like he's improved every game for what it's worth.
That is true. The bye week was the best game he's had so far.
Yep. I mean, he didn't kill you. I mean, he wasn't good.
He didn't kill them. He
Buffalo.
killed you if you were dumb enough to start him. I don't think he
Yeah.
threw a touchdown or anything, but
he didn't throw a pick,
right,
which is good.
You do have a returning Darius Geis, and it's like you keep mentioning, they need to create some excitement around this team. So you're really going to get to see what Haskins can do with Geis and Trey Quinn and Terry McLaurin, which figures to be some building pieces for this team.
You would hope so.
So we'll keep an eye on that, and obviously as we get closer to it and into the offseason, have some dynasty updates there. LaShawn McCoy, healthy scratch this past week because, quote, the Chiefs want him healthy down the stretch, or fresh down the stretch, rather.
I feel like this is
a lie.
This is smoke. Yeah, I feel like Andy Reid doesn't want to come out and say that they made a mistake on McCoy and bringing him in. You know, fumbling issues aside, he isn't the back that Andy Reid had in Philadelphia.
I mean, efficiency-wise, he started off fine, but kind of went downhill really from that first week after that. I mean,
he's been hurt since week 1, which I mean, of course, is gonna affect that. But
right,
like, I don't know, like what stretch you lost? They're what 6-4 now. 6-5,
6-4.
With the Raiders kind of, you know, looking better. You know, down the stretch kind of starts now.
I mean, he's been efficient this year, at least on the ground at 5.2 yards per rush. So for a team where Damian Williams hasn't looked fantastic other than a 92-yard gallop, and Darrell Williams hasn't been anything, 6.5 yards per reception for McCoy. He's not been terrible, so there could be some truth to that. Yes, you have the 2 fumbles, but I mean, overall, he's been relatively efficient with the touches he's been given. So
yeah, no, you're right. I was mistaken on that. He's actually been better.
Yeah,
even better than what I think. Just looking at his player profiler page, he's actually put together a nice year.
He has just on 72 rushes, 5.2 yards per attempt. You know, he looks all right in limited work. He's kind of got a Kenyon Drake type of Kenyon Drake in Miami type of 9 to 12 touch a game role. No more than 15, but he was doing some things with it. So, yards after contact per attempt looks good. So,
I mean, he's 5th in true yards per carry, 3rd in breakaway rates.
Yeah,
29th and 22nd and embedded in juke rate isn't necessarily
not great, but for a guy that's not getting a ton of opportunity,
he's
this could be artificially inflated or deflated. So I think there might be some truth there. Honestly, there's no reason when somebody's being that efficient to not shut them down unless you're trying to preserve them, or to shut them down unless you're trying to preserve them. It's not like he's a useless piece. So
I guess we'll see.
Yeah. If it happens again, then I'm concerned.
Yeah, and that'll speak to more of. Well, let me get down to the waivers and cuts section.
Yep. All right, let's get into hangovers.
Hangovers.
All right, burning through some injury updates. Ty Johnson's in concussion protocol for the Lions, so J.D. McKissick, I guess, if he can't go.
Jesus.
Devin Funchess is expected to return to practice for the Colts this week. According to Frank Reich, he's still got some boxes he needs to check before he's a full go, so expect limited if anything. But there is opportunity in this offense with T.Y. Hilton's calf issue and Paris Campbell having a broken hand.
Maybe he should watch and listen to Wednesday's episode to figure out which boxes he needs to check.
Yeah. Where we check all the boxes.
Where we check every box.
And sound absolutely miserable doing it. T.Y. Hilton remains day-to-day with a calf injury, as I just mentioned. Jacoby Brissett, I appreciate this clarity by Frank Reich, by the way. Jacoby Brissett will start this week if he's a full participant in Wednesday's practice. So tune in Wednesday and we'll let you know if Jacoby Brissett's starting this week or not.
Right.
But no, I think that there was a chance he probably could have played against Miami if they hadn't been confident against Miami, and that kind of bit them. I really felt like after Hoyer's 2 interceptions that at halftime they should have made the switch to Chad Kelly and didn't. So
I'm honestly surprised they didn't. Like, this season's still in line. Brian Hoyer is not an answer. Why not throw the young gun AK-47 Sooner out there and see if he can make a comeback?
Right. All right.
You're right over there?
Yeah, I'm good over here. I got something weird that I got to deal with it a little bit. Anyway, Matt Patricia has said Matthew Stafford is truly day-to-day or week-to-week. So, for those that don't know and didn't tune in on Sunday, which I think was most of you, all but 2 of you. Aww. It's okay. I was only live for like 5 minutes.
No, I saw that.
Stafford did miss last minute due to broken bones in his back, so he's dealing with some stuff.
Shut him down.
Yep. Broncos quarterback Drew Lock is going to return to practice this week. Brandon Allen struggles. The Broncos could look to see what they have in Lock. I'd be surprised if they don't anyway. Again, unless you think Brandon Allen's your future, which maybe, but I mean, he's still young too, but I wouldn't bet on it.
I mean, you just spent the 2nd round pick on Drew Lock. You gotta,
unless you're committed to letting Drew Lock sit there for a week or so.
Yeah.
Or sit there for all year and just kind of learn and absorb. If you're committed to that, then you give him a full off season. I think that's fair too.
Yep. No, it is.
There's something to be said for that. But if you're going to put him in, you don't pull him again.
You don't pull a Kaiser.
Yeah. AJ Green is, quote, day-to-day per Zach Taylor. I still think AJ Green's not playing another down for the Bengals.
I stated I think he'll get in at some point because maybe they try to move him this offseason. I think you may see him.
Well, it's like what you said. He may want to prove that he has it. Apparently his ankle swelled up again.
Yeah.
James Conner was estimated as a full participant on Monday's injury report, so expect him back.
Good.
All the waiting for Chris Herndon has left everybody with a big empty void. He's going to miss an extended amount of time with a fractured rib. They're at best just shutting him down and calling this a lost season.
Yeah, that bridge to Herndon went literally nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, so promising his rookie season and in this offense to where Herndon had a chance to break out, and then the suspension followed by the hamstring injury and now a cracked rib. Just sometimes it's just not your year.
Sometimes it's not. Sack fumble touchdown for the Niners, by the way.
Oh, yes. I needed points out of their defense.
I know. I know. I've been watching that, which is good for me because you're playing someone I need you to beat. So, anyways.
Anyway.
Live air update on our fantasy leagues going on
leagues.
because this game is super important this week.
It is super important. Will Fuller returned to practice following a hamstring injury. Things that aren't super important. Actually, that could be. Nobody's really stepped up in the absence of Will Fuller other than Darren Fells. So,
literally, he's been the only person. Well, you've seen a little bit more Duke Johnston in the passing game, which is needs to happen in general.
Will Fuller will resume his normal fantasy role of being super frustrating.
Every 5 weeks, he puts up a 30-point game.
Yeah. D.D. Westbrook expected to return to practice this week. Interesting in the sense that they're switching back to Nick Foles, and you'll have to recalibrate on this offense. We talked about this a couple weeks ago when we did the Minshew versus Foles debate, but it bears repeating that this team has all of one drive with Nick Foles. It was a touchdown drive to DJ Chark, but they have all of one drive with Nick Foles. So what you know about the Jaguars right now and what they were with Gardner Minshew may not be what you know about the Jaguars with Nick Foles, and that's something you need to be cautious of. And if you can afford to kind of wait and see how that plays out, that might not be the worst of ideas. We'll get more into that on Wednesday when we check boxes.
I think, and not just with the receivers and then I guess the lone tight end, but also see what the targets are for a guy like, and routes run for a guy like Leonard Fournette, and change how the offenses ran, because Fournette's he gotten a lot of touchdowns, but he gets a lot of touches and production on both the ground and through the air, which has made him a very floor and safe running back to have. So also keep an eye on that.
Yeah, you're gonna have a lot of things to watch and recalibrate on with Foles coming back.
Yep,
I'm personally hoping Minshew finds his way back in somehow.
Me too.
Saints cornerback Marshawn Lattimore week to week with a hamstring strain. That's notable for anybody playing the Saints, because that means P.J. Williams and Eli Apple are now on the outside. Hurts their secondary.
Changes a lot of things, as you saw against their loss against Atlanta. I mean, obviously they don't block against the Falcons, but it does change a lot of their defense. Lattimore was one of the true shutdown corners in the league.
Right. And you lose him, and then you've all of a sudden got cornerbacks that are outmatched.
You've seen how bad Eli Apple has been. You saw with the Giants how bad he was. And P.J. Williams is not very good.
Eli Apple's been better with the Saints, but he's still not who you want guarding your number one wide receiver.
Hell no. Yeah.
Austin Hooper sprained MCL. He's expected to miss, quote, sometime. He's seeking a second opinion on how long. MCL could be up to 2 weeks, though. That's a big blow if you don't own a Hunter Henry or somebody else with Hooper.
Goddamn football gods, take another tight end. He's a number one tight end, I think. I think he's still number one in the league, or in fantasy. Fuck. Come on.
Yep. Devonta Freeman's expected to miss about 2 weeks with a foot sprain. Brian Hill will resume lead back duties there with Ito Smith on IR. They're going to sign somebody. They have to.
Well, they missed out on Mike Davis, who apparently is the talking point. Did we talk about Mike Davis?
No, I didn't care to talk about Mike Davis. We can talk about Mike Davis if you want. Mike Davis got signed by the Panthers. That means nothing.
That means CJ Henderson on the Panthers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would be surprised if Atlanta doesn't bring somebody in, though.
They do something. They can't just roll out there with Brian Hill and whoever. And Qualidre Olsen now is a thing again.
Oh, good
right?
Lord.
Is he? I think he's still healthy.
I think so.
All right. Anyways.
All right. Anyway, we're gonna go to pick your six, which is really gonna be pick your three, because Dan worked all day and I didn't, so I took the brunt here on some talking points.
Because you remember.
Pick your six.
All right, so first I want to dive into the Rams offense, and I was really going to do this on struggling offenses, but we've beaten the Browns to death, and we know that the problem's Freddie Kitchens. The Bears were the other one I wanted to talk about here, but there's really not a whole lot to say other than I think that the Bears proved something against the Lions, and that's that the problem is that their play calling is too conservative, because once again, for the second week in a row, when they wanted to push the ball downfield, they did it, and they did it well. They put together 3 straight scoring drives to put the Lions out of their misery, and then just kind of sat back and played to not lose, and ended up winning that football game. And I think that proves every question I had about the Bears of, is it Trubisky or is it that they're being too conservative? I think with what we saw in the second half against Philadelphia and what we saw in the middle of that game against Detroit, that they're just being too conservative with their play calling.
Yeah, they should just open up and let Trubisky, do some RPO, some single reads, and just let them get in rhythm early, and it should help the offense as a whole.
So I really wanted to deep dive into the Rams, though, because the Rams are a team where I think a lot of people had a lot of fantasy stock sitting.
Well, it was a very juicy fantasy team the last couple of years, so we understand why.
Yep, it has not gone well.
No,
and
it hasn't.
I really wanted to look at why. Now, one, just found out earlier tonight that they're going to be missing 2 more of their starting offensive linemen. They're already missing Noteboom. They lost, now, who was their starting right tackle. But they've also lost their center, who was ranked worst in the league at center. and I believe another one of their guards. So they're down to just 2 of their offensive line starters. But you wanted to look at what's wrong with the Rams here. So, Dan, I just want to start from knowing that you didn't get to deep dive this inning and having watched them, what do you see the problem is?
I think from the few games I've saw this year, I haven't been able to see a lot of them because they generally play in the 3:00 games, and if I'm able to watch the game, it's generally like watch games is at the bar for the noon games. That's when generally the Bears and Vikings to play. So the few games I've watched from them and just looking at box scores and reading through Twitter and kind of looking through the Rams through the weeks, it seems like people have figured out Sean McVeigh. I think what we saw last year in the Super Bowl and what we've kind of even seen, I think, through times last year in general, that McVeigh doesn't really adjust well. And I think people have caught up to that. Todd Gurley's injury, I think, has been downplayed even more so for the offense. This team ran through Todd Gurley the last 2 years. It wasn't just because of McVeigh. It was because of Todd Gurley, a great offensive line, and a defense that was really opportunistic with guys like Talib and Marcus Peters. And even before Peters came there, the team fed off of pressure from guys like Darnold and was able to create plays through that way. The concussion to Brandon Cooks hasn't helped. Cooper Kupp has been amazing this year, but not one player can really save a team, especially just a receiver. And I think Goff has now struggled through that with the poor offensive line. That's what I've kind of seen. It's just the countless setbacks have finally caught up to him. And with the Niners and the Seahawks, being as good as they've been, I think have put some pressure on this coaching staff and on the team to do well, and they haven't responded that well.
So there are really 3 things that stick out as glaring, and you hit the nail on the head with 2 of them. The other one is that Goff has just regressed. Yeah. So first off, wanted to look at, is it Jared Goff? Well, sort of, but kind of not really. He's terrible under pressure, 22.6% completion, but he was also bad last season, just 31.3%. He's actually being hurried less this season, which, what is, to me, that says, based on some other things that we've seen, the fact that he's being blitzed more means he's getting the ball out quicker. Routes aren't developing downfield as much. That also shows in Cooper Kupp's yards per target that Goff is trying to get the ball out faster to make up for that offensive line not being there, and things aren't developing as quick. But he's been hurried less this season. He's on pace for 51 hurried passes compared to 66 last year, about the same number of sacks. The accuracy's taken a hit. Both his accuracy rating and completion percentage is down. You can see that in all the wide receivers as well, as far as the accuracy rating when all 3 of them, that being Cooks, Woods, and Kupp, are targeted. And he's on pace to actually be blitzed 192 times versus just 151. So when you're being blitzed more but hurried less, that tells me you're getting the ball out quicker, but you're not being as accurate with it. So playing a little scared almost because of that offensive line. The receivers, for their part, the other part I wanted to look at, they have not regressed at all. You mentioned losing Brandon Cooks, but I will say this, that if you consider Cooks and Kupp as 1A, 1B, which they have been the last couple seasons, and even Woods 1C, you lost Kupp halfway through, and Josh Reynolds filled in admirably. He's filling in now just fine for Brandon Cooks. We saw him flash a couple of good plays last week, but receivers aren't really separating a whole lot less. I think it's like 7 100ths of a yard. They're down in yards in target separation. Kupp's actually getting more open, deeper downfield with the higher yards per completion than last season. Brandon Cooks has also been generally more open when he's healthy, but QBR when he's getting targeted is also down, as is his target quality. And Robert Woods, even though he's not getting open quite as much, downfield targets considerably less to him. That's where you see the big change in Goff getting the ball out quick. And he's also seeing the same drop in QB accuracy. So Jared Goff being blitzed more, he's not adapted to it. And
there's I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, you can tell that, especially in the routes Robert Woods is running and the way that Cooper Kupp is being utilized, that they've tried to adapt and work around to get the ball out of Goff's hand quicker, but he has not adapted to that in the way that the play calling looks like it's adapted to that.
So there's also one thing that sticks out, and that's his clean pocket completion percentage is at 68.9%, 30th in the league. This, to me, is the same issue that Baker Mayfield, I'm assuming, is also dealing with, in that he's seeing ghosts. He's probably feeling pressure that's not there because of the pressure that's being put on him.
Yeah,
and that's from the pass rush, obviously, not just from from outside forces.
Playing without trust.
Yeah, he's playing without trust. He's not like, if those things are hand in hand, that's not a 1 week fix, and sometimes that's not a 1 season fix.
No, I don't think it is going to be fixed this season. I think he's getting blitzed more and he's playing without trust. I think he's getting hit about the same amount, but I agree. I think he's playing without trust. They've devised the offense to try to get the ball out of his hands faster, so he's focusing on, okay, I'm going to get the ball out of my hands, but not should I get the ball out of my hands, and it shows. Shows in his clean pocket completion percentage, shows in his completion percentage, it shows in the quality of targets given to all of his receivers. And then the other thing you mentioned about Gurley, that's where it gets a little interesting. 5 less rush attempts per game. He's on pace for 30 fewer targets than in years past. But he's seeing roughly the same number of yards before contact. Now, what he's not seeing is as many yards after contact. So what that tells me is Gurley hasn't lost his explosiveness or the ability to break the first tackle, but guy 2 and guy 3 are getting there faster. Or at least that's what it looks like to me when you have the same number of yards before first contact, but less overall after contact.
I'm wondering if that's also due to the fact that, like, it's shocking to me that a player like Gurley, who we all have, there's massive injury concerns with them, like durability at this point. At this point, why not put him into more high value, touches? He should be getting more pass catching. He should be getting more targets.
And he's not. They've used him to convert. They've used him to convert just 3 third downs this year in the receiving game. He did that 27 times last year. Just 3 this year. His yards per completion is down by about 5 yards a catch. Yards per catch is down by about 5 yards a catch. Run blocking efficiency has taken a major hit. That's down something like 30 points.
He's at 59.5.
Yep.
And last year he was at 89.2. That's insane.
Juke rate is, but here's the other insane part. The juke rate's up. The evaded tackles are level. He's creating more yards per carry than he did last season, and he's getting less stacked front. To me, that says if you use Todd Gurley more, you're probably going to be okay, because he doesn't look like, from those numbers, like he's showing the ill effects of injury or anything like that. He's getting roughly the same amount of yards before contact. He's breaking and evading more or the same amount of tackles. I mean, there's nothing in his efficiency that says that he's showing ill effects of anything other than it's like they're trying to protect him more. And you figure that if you're trying to get away from blitzes or get the ball out of his hand quick, why wouldn't you be working it to Gurley outside and giving him more high volume chances and opportunities in the passing game?
I mean, now why not run some draws to help, protect on that, if teams are blitzing more, why not run more plays that hurts the blitz? Screen passes and draws.
Hell, why not use Darrell Henderson more in the screen game, who we know has that explosive ability?
Sure, but if Todd Gurley isn't as banged up and if he's not losing it, he's the best player on this team.
He is,
without a doubt. And I love Cooper Kupp, but Todd Gurley is the engine on this offense when he's healthy, when they run through it.
Yep.
Which is why, again, it goes back to my Sean McVeigh point is there's got to be something with him. Maybe they're being too conservative with Todd Gurley, and that's affected the offense.
Well, the other thing that sticks out is the league adjusting, right? And I think that shows from the fact that they're stacking the box less against Gurley. I think they figured out what they're going to try to do, so they're bringing pressure, but they're taking more guys out of the box because they're not using Gurley as much, and that lets them cover better.
That's a great point. That is. This is also a great thing to talk about. Just the fact that there's a lot of people that were invested into this team. I know with Gurley, people were up and down on him, and news got better as the offseason went along into the later part of draft season, and he rose back up to high second, early first. They lose Malcolm Brown early the season. We like Darrell Henderson. I especially like him. It to me, it just feels like McVeigh is in a box and he can't get himself out of it. It's kind of like watching. He's like the offensive side of Mike Zimmer, like to me, where he can't, like he's smart and he can do a lot of good things, but he can't adjust and he can't get out of his own way.
So, and the question I have to ask though is how much of it is McVeigh too? Because it looks like he's tried to adjust based on Goff and some of what they're doing as far as working the ball downfield, getting the ball out of his hand quicker, not, to avoid some of those blitzes and whatnot that are coming. He's obviously working around a bad offensive line. I think Goff is the one that struggled to adjust. I think McVeigh has adjusted the play calling. I don't think Goff has adjusted to the differences in this offense. And I think that
he might be 100% correct there too.
And I think that's probably the struggle for McVeigh is how do you adapt around not having an offensive line and not having a quarterback that is adapting to what you're trying to do to adapt around not having an offensive line. And you're also trying to work around a running back that it looks like that they're obviously trying to protect health-wise. So I mean, I think McVeigh is kind of in this unenviable position of how do you work around those three different things that are glaringly wrong with your offense that have been strengths in the past.
And then to that point is
they got to get help.
Move away from Goff and you start to work Gurley more.
You got to find ways to work Gurley, and I think that Henderson's been an underutilized asset.
Yeah, he's got 2 games this year. This Todd Gurley, 2 games this year of over 4 targets. He's had 1 game with 5 and 1 game with 11.
He was on pace for 30 less.
Yeah, it's insane. And that 1 game was against Tampa Bay when it was a blowout, where everybody looked unbelievably good.
Yep,
and we all know how. So.
That's the one thing with the play calling that I don't get is why are you screwing around with Malcolm Brown? Why if you can't use Todd Gurley in the passing game, you're trying to protect it. Why are you not using the more explosive of your backup running backs in that way then?
Or just throw them both out there and try to create for both players
right.
who should be. We know Todd Gurley is fantastic in space. We've seen it. And we know that Darrell Henderson, based on what we've seen in college, has the ability to be explosive in space.
Yep. And we saw in the Steelers game from Goff too, he just was not like Kupp didn't have a catch. And it's not because Kupp wasn't open, and props to the Steelers defensive backfield. They'd made some good plays, but he just wasn't leading him either. Like he was just a hair off on everything on those intermediate routes.
Well, then if you're the Rams, do you bench Goff? Do you make your 5-4? You started off the season 3-0, then you lose 3 straight. You win 2 more in a row, then you just lose after the bye week against a Pittsburgh team that is starting to look good, especially on they're playing old school Pittsburgh football. But if Goff really is the struggle here, and we've seen stretches with Bortles, I know people like to meme him all the time, but Bortles in a right structure can not be the worst quarterback in the world.
There's a big thing Blake Bortles has that Jared Goff doesn't that helps when you're trying to work around a bad offensive line. Mobility and the ability to throw outside of the pocket.
Yep, and create yards, like again, obviously
with his legs.
Create yards on the ground, pick up first downs and key third downs.
Yep. I don't think they bench Goff though. I think that this is a relationship that has to work long term, and I don't think that that's a route that you can go barring injury.
Yeah, I figure so, but I think there's a question again that needs to be asked.
I think there's merit to it. I think from a football standpoint that Bortles has a skill set better equipped to deal with not saying Bortles is a better pocket passer than Goff, because he's absolutely not, but I think Bortles has a better skill set to deal with a shoddy offensive line, to be able to extend plays and work the offense downfield, and to help you work around that isn't completely changing your play calling from last year.
I will say this, if Goff struggles and the Rams lose a couple more in a row, and Goff's the reason, or Goff just doesn't look good, we'll circle back to this question. And I think, like,
Believe
I think
me,
there's a real
I've got a
opportunity.
spare set of panties waiting for the first Bortles to Cooper Cup touchdown.
I saw that sleeper bot post and fantasy football alert post that Bortles was in, and I immediately thought of you. That was my first thought.
I've never
Was
wanted
Chris
somebody
Hopper
to
in this
be.
moment?
I've never wanted somebody to be injured so badly.
Oh, geez.
Turns out they just reached the Blake Bortles section of the playbook, which
All right.
actually merit to that also. But yeah. Anyway,
Anyways,
enough about the Rams. I want to move on to some misconceptions and stats, not including Week 10. So I hope you're not looking at my notes here. All right, got some questions for you, Dan.
Okay.
Ready? Weeks 8, 9, and 10. Over or under 18 fantasy points a game for Aaron Rodgers.
is he averaging?
Is he averaging over or under that?
It's got to be over because of the Oakland game.
16.7.
Really?
Weeks 8, 9, and... Oh, wait. I guess this should be 7, 8, and 9. 10 wasn't there. But still. No, it was 8, 9, and 10. Sorry. Kansas City, the Chargers, and Carolina.
Oh, that was post.
Yeah.
That was post the Raiders game.
Post Raiders game. Kansas City,
That's
Chargers,
right.
Panthers.
Wow. Yeah.
All right. Week 7. Yeah, Aaron Rodgers. So the thing there, Packers offense has been struggling. That's basically what that's going to highlight. The running game's been good with Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. They're working, but they're still transitioning in this wide receiver game. I think they found something they like in Alan Lazard. He continues to get playing time. Geronimo Allison and Valdez-Scantling have been pretty much non-existent. So Kumaro and Lazard have been rotating in more. And Devontae Adams is still, I guess, reintegrating. I don't know. He hasn't had exactly a blow-up game, so there's still some problems going on there.
I think there's going to be if their defense hasn't actually stepped up and the running game hasn't been better than expected, be having a far different conversation about the future of Green Bay.
Yeah. All right. Another over/under question for you. Week 7 through 10. Is Derrick Henry better or worse than the RB 7.5 point PPR as far as fantasy points per game are concerned?
Points per game. Oh shit. He's been consistent. Multiple touchdown games. Scored, I think, last week. Maybe I'm gonna go with over. I'm gonna go with better than the RB7.
He's the running back 6.
Yes.
4 touchdowns, 3 games over 75 yards against Kansas City, Carolina, Tampa Bay, and the Chargers. So those are not exactly, other than Kansas City, those are not exactly weak run defenses. Tampa Bay has been good against the run. Carolina and the Chargers have both been average.
Yeah.
So Derrick Henry, quietly for once, having a good year.
I mean, like I felt like people. I mean, obviously coming off of the massive fantasy playoff we had last year, it felt like this year always felt different to me. Just with them saying, like from the beginning of the offseason, that they were going to be committed to Henry, the offensive line improving, the defense, whatever. But like to me, it just always felt like with the struggles of Mariota, that this was going to be Derrick Henry is going to finally get fed. Like they're not bringing in a Deion Lewis type of guy or somebody that they signed Alex Barnes off of free agent wire. If you weren't deep in the rookies, you didn't know that or know who he was. But I felt like this was kind of coming. Like maybe not this consistent because he's been good almost every game.
Yeah. Sorry, I was looking at I guess that 21-21 is off of the strip sack, or is off of the pick 6 for San Francisco.
Yeah, San Francisco pick 6, one touchdown from Wilson, 1 touchdown from Carson, and then the Niners have scored 2 touchdowns with a couple field goals, I think.
Wait, was it a pick 6? Wilson's not showing a pick.
No, I'm sorry, it was a sack fumble. It was 2 sack fumbles in this game.
Gotcha. Any idea who had that sack fumble?
If you keep talking, I'll find it.
I'm hoping for Eric Armstead.
Ooh, that sounds kind of familiar.
That would make me happy. All right. Anyway, another one. This is going to be an either or. Over the last 5 weeks, who has more fantasy points, Kenny Golladay or Chris Godwin?
And Golladay. Godwin's been really, really floor. No touchdowns lately.
Yep, by 7. It's also got the edge in yards and touchdowns. Just Kenny Golladay. Him and Marvin Jones have both been quietly good. At least Jones on the every other week thing, but Golladay relatively consistently.
DeForest Buckner got the
Gotcha.
sack fumble touchdown. Anyways.
All right, true or false? Over the last 5 weeks, Darren Fells has outscored Travis Kelce and Zach Ertz. Same number of games played, by the way, with bye weeks in there.
Oh, true. Because he's had multiple 2-touchdown games.
It is true. 5 touchdowns in that time frame. Darren Fells has been better than Kelce and Zach Ertz.
And that's why you wait on tight ends, folks.
That's why you stream tight ends.
That's why you stream tight ends and you wait on them in the draft.
All right. True or false? Mitch Trubisky has a better interception rate than Tom Brady, Lamar Jackson, and Deshaun Watson.
Oh, God. I hope, it's a better interception rate. Has he thrown a lot of... I don't think he's thrown a lot of picks. I want to go with true.
He has not thrown a lot of picks. No, I saw a meme or something today. Oh, it was the Onion post that Nick shared about the Lions playing cover 0, so Trubisky doesn't throw the double coverage or throw a pick. But the fact is that Trubisky's been so protected that the completion percentage and the interception percentage are actually good. The touchdown percentage is terrible, but they've been so conservative with him that his interception rate is just 1.3%. Versus 1.4 for Brady, 1.7 for Jackson, and 2.0 for Watson. Actually, I think
those are all good. Interception percentage, yes.
Yeah, but anything below 2.5, anything below 3 is typically good. But just misconception again, and just goes back to what I said earlier about the Bears being hurt more so by a conservative play calling than Mitch Trubisky's actual play.
Yeah, it's not. He's posting his best touchdown to interception ratio
right
in his career right now this season. Right, as of right now, he is.
All right, Leonard Fournette, yards per game on the season, over or under 80.
Ooh, yeah, that 200+ game against Denver not too long ago. I'm gonna go with. We've had a lot of positives. I'm gonna go with under.
He's over 80. He's at 90.1. He's averaging more than Zeke Elliott, Saquon Barkley, and James Conner. He's trailing only Christian McCaffrey, Nick Chubb, and Dalvin Cook in yards per game on the ground.
His scrimmage yards per game also got to be pretty good with the amount of passing work he's been getting.
Yeah, no, he's been quietly good. The only thing he's missed is touchdowns. They haven't been using him in the red zone for some reason. Because I don't know why you wouldn't use your
there, I feel like either.
Big-ass 230-pound back in the red zone.
Yeah, well... amongst the other reasons of what's going on with
actually, let's vet that real quick.
I'm going to look at this.
That's what I was doing, I think. Are you going to look at his red zone usage?
Yeah, I'm just going to look at red zone rushing for him.
Sorry, guys. We look things up on air, too, because we can't be prepared for everything we might ask. 39.
32.
He's second in red zone touches.
I got third and inside the 20. I got a little bit lower inside the 10.
4.3 a game, so he's just not getting in.
No, he's had four carries inside the 5 for -6 yards and 1. He's 1 for 4 in his red zone in his inside the 5 carries, which isn't necessarily good.
Right. No, he's getting the opportunities. It looks like
they're just not getting down close.
Yeah,
or they're not feeding him enough down close. So, but I don't think they've been down there that much. I think that's why it seems lower than what.
4.3 a game, though. I mean, that's not percentage of how often your team has been there. I mean, that's number 2 in the league. So, I mean, they got to be down there for him to be that high, right?
True. So, we do see a lot of Minshew tight ends and
you'll DJ Chark and.
Yeah, you'll see, all 3 of the receivers, 4, even if you're throwing Keelan Cole, get some usage down there.
So, yeah, I was just saying that they got to be there for him to be number 2 in the league in touches.
That's fair.
Can't have red zone touches if the team's not there.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right, last one. Higher yards per reception this season, Stephon Diggs or Tyreek Hill?
Oh, man. Is it Diggs?
Diggs.
Yeah, it's got to be Diggs. He's insane with his yards per His yards per target.
18.5 versus Hill at 16.2. The big difference in their fantasy positioning there is that they have about the same number of targets and receptions, and Diggs has played 4 more games.
Yeah, when you start out the way that Diggs started off, it doesn't matter that Hill got injured. Like, I mean, the team is the offense needs Thielen back because the teams have just shifted all their coverage to Diggs' side because they don't give a fuck about Kyle Rudolph or BC Johnson or Irv Smith. So need to get Thielen back for Diggs to start getting that production back up again. But I love how they've been using him.
I do too. All right. And last item I want to talk about here before we hit a review and then start checking boxes and go into the less fun part of the week. So I did this as a precursor to the guest spot we're doing on Football Garbage Time. I was a little confused because I thought you wanted next Tuesday, but then they said we're recording tomorrow at 9:30. So I don't know when we're actually recording, but we'll be on with Football Garbage Time at some point.
I hope it's tomorrow.
I hope
That's
it's tomorrow.
what I assumed it
He
was.
said tomorrow, so I think we're going on tomorrow with Football Garbage Time. This is my precursor to that because we're going to be talking about guys that could potentially win you your fantasy league. So I looked at some schedules, and just to get it on our show, wanted to go through some teams that have schedules that stand out as really good, really bad, or a section of their schedule is really good for the remainder of the season. So, wanted to start with the Bills. They've got the Dolphins this week. Then after that, they go Broncos, Cowboys, Ravens, Steelers, and Pats, which is a bad stretch for an offense that isn't necessarily known as being explosive.
Yes, it's brutal.
Yeah,
especially with how good Pittsburgh has looked. Dallas is whatever, but
again, not an explosive offense. So Dallas is good against not great team or against not great offenses.
Is there some concern for John Brown then? Because he's been the one consistent. He's just missing touchdowns.
I've got concern against John Brown the rest of the way. If Xavier Howard plays for the Dolphins, and then you get Harris for the Broncos, Awuzie, who did a pretty good job on Diggs last night.
I wonder. I think
Jimmy Smith back for the Ravens, Joe Hayden, and then Stephon Gilmore. I mean, that's a bad lineup for cornerback matchups.
I'm pretty sure Howard is on IR, so I think they can avoid that. Last time they played New England, he went 5 for 69 with 11 targets.
Okay.
In a close out game. He had 11 targets against Cleveland. I don't know if Ward was back or not in that game.
I think they'll try to find ways to get him the ball, but the matchups are not good. And really, it's been a while since John Brown has had a touchdown, so he's been more of a floor guy anyway. Yeah, week 7. So he's been more of a floor guy anyway. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but he's been mostly in that 50 to 70 yard range on 5 or 6 receptions.
His worst game of the year was against Cincy. He went 4 for 5 for 51.
Yeah,
or 4 of 5 for 50. He's had no less than 51 yards in a game. He's had 3 games of over 10 or more targets, just 2 games with a touchdown. So
yeah, no 100-yard game since week 1. So
yeah,
he's giving you floor most weeks, but man, with that it gets rough, and I really don't want to trust Gore or Singletary in any of that, or Allen. So
yeah, if your league is if your redraft league, and I guess maybe even in Dynasty, if you don't believe in Josh Allen and this offense long term, you might be if your deadline
somebody will buy Josh Allen
passed yet.
But
what's that?
Somebody will buy Josh Allen. I'm more focused in redraft here.
Well, no, I'm just saying for John Brown I'm not talking about anybody else.
Yeah.
Just John Brown. He might be a sell high potentially.
Yeah. On the flip side of that, the Dolphins, if you can find anybody that emerges, they get the Bills, but then they got the Browns, Eagles, who have been bad in the secondary, Jets, Giants, Bengals to end the season. So Fitzpatrick, viable streamer, Gesicki, and then I guess you got to have somebody emerge in one of the other sets, though. But if anybody emerges from the Dolphins, hell, if you got churn roster spots, take your shots on Dolphins.
I mean, if we know for 100% certain that Ryan Fitzpatrick's the starter for the rest of the year,
he is expected to be. That came out earlier today that Flores is sticking with Fitzpatrick for the foreseeable future.
God, how amazing would it be if the Miami Dolphins end up going 9-7? fucking win out. Beat New England Week 17 when they have nothing to play for, and beat a lot of underperforming teams. The Bills have been exposed.
Thing is,
Cleveland.
That Bills game will be close. The Browns have been underperforming. Eagles, I don't think they'll win that one. The Jets haven't been great. Giants, depends. Fitzpatrick will have to keep up with Daniel Jones. That's weird.
They're going to fuck around and end up with a mid-teens pick.
They are.
Like, the fuck? Doing so good at tanking, and then you're like, let's put in Fitzpatrick. It's like, what are you doing?
Yep. All right, for the Jets, we'll get to this a little bit more in your drops and stuff, but their next three, Raiders, Bengals, Dolphins, if you're trying to get into the playoffs. And they have the Raiders and Steelers, but wait, Raiders and Steelers, that doesn't make any sense. I typed something wrong there. Raiders, Bengals, either way. Ravens and Steelers, that's what it was. But Raiders, Bengals, Dolphins for the next three if you're trying to get into the playoffs. Jamison Crowder, Lev Bell, and even potentially Sam Darnold as a streaming option are good options there. Bell, not so much against the Raiders as the Bengals and Dolphins, but Demaryius Thomas, I believe, had a big game this past week.
Yeah.
I think he was used more than Robbie Anderson.
Yeah, 6'9" for 84. It's been the best game of his last three seasons combined. So
yeah. So
that's a good game.
Yeah.
It's not a bad game for sure.
He had a solid game if that's considered a breakout for him. You haven't gotten much about Robbie Anderson, but take your shot on those wide receivers. Herndon's not going to be back to take targets from them, especially Crowder. And those are three very, very good matchups. The Eagles, they run into the Patriots, bad. Seahawks, Dolphins, Redskins, good. Cowboys should be solid with that being a divisional game. So outside of next week, they're another team with pieces that could lead you to the playoffs. Nelson Aguilar, with Deshaun Jackson being out the rest of the year, probably going to be the most available guy. He at least gives you floor most of the time. You might still be able, if you haven't passed a trade deadline yet, though, to go kick the tires on Alshon Jeffrey, who was drafted late and maybe a fourth receiver on some teams. Potentially Jordan Howard and Miles Sanders as well.
Oh, that is a juicy.
It's a juicy schedule.
It's a juicy end. If Aguilar, when they put him on the outside early on in his career, struggled, but I'm wondering if he'll take more to that role. Especially if they use a lot more 12 personnel.
Well, they'll use more 12 personnel, I think, but in 3 sets, I wouldn't be surprised if he's inside with Hollins.
Yeah, if they push Hollins, if they push Hollins, also Miles Sanders too.
Yeah,
another good guy who gets a lot of the Darren Sproles, work in the passing game now.
For the Steelers, they got the Browns, Bengals, Browns again, and Cardinals, Bills, Jets. So other than that Bills matchup, they get a really, really juicy set of things going on there. Deontay Johnson and James Washington should be floating around. So go ahead and snap those guys up if they're sitting out there. I don't think Jalen Samuels will be available, and actually you can just kick that away. Vance McDonald should be a viable streamer. So for the Panthers, they're another one that jumped out as having a pretty easy stretch. Falcons, Saints, if Lattimore's still out, gets better. Redskins, Falcons, Seahawks, Colts. So I don't know who you're going to... My problem with the Panthers is I don't know who the hell you're going to pick up. Because everybody there should be owned by now.
Everyone that's worth owning is owned. Unless Greg Olsen gets banged up and Ian Thomas is floating around, which I would expect to be.
Yeah.
He's got some value to him, but there's no... you're not picking up Jarius Wright. You're not picking up Chris Hogan or whoever else they got there. It's all CMC, DJ Moore.
Yeah. CMC, DJ Moore, Greg Olsen. I guess if you're streaming, Kyle Allen's viable, quarterback-wise.
Even though it didn't happen this year, Curtis Samuel, it would probably be owned. He'd probably be the least owned amongst those 4 people. Dart throw, yeah.
That's what you're looking for. It happens every year. Every year, there's somebody. Robert Foster comes to mind from last year. Derrick Henry. There's somebody that is
Robbie Anderson.
Robbie Anderson. There's good Lord. Tim Patrick and Trent Sherfield. There's somebody floating around that over the last 4 weeks of the season blows up. And then everybody's entirely too high on them next year and they don't do anything. Dante Pettis. But somebody blows up. So stash these guys so that you're holding the guy that blows up. Can't tell you who it's going to be. These are the teams that have the schedules to where that can happen, though. Curtis Samuel's a good guy that could be. Deontay Johnson and James Washington from the Steelers. Nelson Aguilar on the Eagles. Robbie Anderson and Demaryius Thomas for the Jets. Looking at the Raiders schedule, they get the Bengals, Jets, Chiefs, Titans, Jags, and Chargers. So other than the Titans and Chargers, Jags, they're another one that has the next 3 weeks that look pretty juicy to the radar. Tyrell Williams is floating around out there. Hunter Renfro's giving you some nice floor. So a couple guys you can pick up there. And then teams I'd steer away from, Tisk, you could probably sell high on Christian Kirk in redraft. The Cardinals have the Niners, Rams, Steelers, Browns, and Seahawks. So Browns and Seahawks, good. You may hold them because that's going to be your semifinals and finals week. But if you're just trying to make the playoffs, Niners, Rams, and Steelers is not great.
I mean, yeah, no, from a matchup perspective, it's definitely not. Just like with the Cardinals, it's just their game pace, and if Christian Kirk's going to be like pampered with targets, or at least be used all over the field, I think he could give you floor. But I do agree, like if you can sell high off of this, breakout game from him, then do it.
Yep. Because you got to get to that semifinal and final round before that's useful again. And Niners, Rams, and Steelers is not necessarily a gamble on upside. You might gamble on floor, but you're not really gambling on upside there.
It just, it's always going to depend. It depends on your trade deadline. It depends on your roster, construction. I like what I've seen, from Kirk since coming back healthy with Kyler Murray. So, but I mean, if you can sell high, like you should always sell high on their highest value. That's how you generally, more so for dynasty, how you generally continue to be good.
Yep. All right, that's all I got there. Let's go ahead and hit a beer review. We'll give you some waivers and some cuts to send you off to the rest of the week.
To end this shit.
Beer review.
All right, Dan. Never mind. Oh, yeah. No, we're doing the beer review. You do start this one off. Carrot Cake Brown.
Carrot Cake Brown Ale. I didn't read it beforehand, but this is it's brewed with carrot, spices, and lactose. It's not carrot cake. Because there's no lactose. There's just no sweetness in it. It's not a bad beer by any stretch of the imagination. I think this is a tasty beverage. It's just not what it's being advertised. The spices really stick out in this. It doesn't say what spices they use, but there is some nutmeg into this. There's definitely spices that stick out. The brown ale as a whole really sticks out. You really get the roasted, caramel toffee type of flavor, with the spices enhancing kind of what they're trying to go for. I don't know what the carrots are supposed to bring out. I just haven't enough beers with carrots in them to know what is supposed to be brought out with said carrots. To me, this isn't what they went for. It's still a fine drinker, but if you're looking for a drink that's supposed to mirror what they're saying, this isn't it.
Yeah, carrots I'd imagine would come, I don't even know, probably somewhat close to what you get out of like a sweet potato or whatever in that deployment of them. But we've had some sweet potato ales that are pretty good.
No, Benton Rivers, you're so good.
Yeah. All right, I was drinking, what am I drinking? Bell Mead's Madeira cask. This particular bottle is also signed by the head brewer. Not that matters to the taste or anything, or the head distiller. Not that matters to the taste or anything.
Most days.
As far as the taste goes, I wish we had a bourbon taste. You're a little darker in color. Not a whole lot of legs on this. It is lower proof. There's a little bit of trailing off in the glass, but generally hot all the way through. It's more of a mouth burn than it really is down the back of the throat. You start off with a little bit of kind of leathery almost. That does give way to your traditional sweetness. There's some pepperiness to it up front. Trails into some drier like baking spice, if you will. Little bit of brown sugar coming through it. It's an MGP juice, so if you've had anything else that's brewed by them, like Bullet, a lot of newer distilleries source their bourbon from MGP. Kind of got some of the same core there, but the Madeira Cast does impart a more oakiness and dryness on it. So overall, it's a good bourbon. It's a good drinker, and warms my bones on this chilly night.
Sounds tasty.
Glad I could fumble fuck my way through that. Just like Russell Wilson to giving this game away.
Did he fumble?
No, it's 24-24.
No, it's in
overtime.
An OT.
Holy shit. That's exactly what you wanted, right? Overtime?
Yeah, right. As I'm trying to avoid more points to Lockett and Metcalf, which thankfully hasn't happened. But I mean, I still need Wilson to do things. But anyways.
Beer goggles.
All right, beer goggles. So we start checking boxes for the week. Going ahead, going to waiver pickups. I'll start this one off with Derek Carr. He's got Cincinnati, the Jets, and Kansas City, just 36.7% owned. Hasn't exactly been a killer. He's giving you a decent floor most weeks, and he's coming up against some games where they should be able to pass, and it will, where the Raiders are clearly the better team. So if you're streaming and you need a guy that you can hold on to for a couple weeks that's going to potentially get you into the playoffs, Derek Carr's a direction to look. Dan, I almost wrote this guy in for you. Darius Slayton.
Darius Slayton coming off of his breakout game, 10 on 14 targets, 121 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He's seen over 90% of snaps outside of last week against Detroit, or 2 weeks ago against Detroit, since week 6. He's clearly taken over the number 2 spot with Sterling Shepard banged up. I don't know if Shepard is going to see the field for the rest of the year as he continues to battle through his concussion issues. And he is only taken off with Daniel Jones. He scored 4 touchdowns the last games, scoring 2 times in those games. He's not necessarily someone that you can rely on for floor, as outside of this week in week 6, he's had no game with more than 6 targets. But he does present you with upside. His matchups against Chicago next week doesn't look good. Or I'm sorry, in week 12 after the bye week that they had in week 11. But weeks 13 through on, Green Bay, Philadelphia, into Miami and at Washington is a juicy playoff schedule for him. I know that Miami and Washington have been a little bit better against receivers as of late, but struggling teams want to see more from their, or will try to show more with their younger, potentially build around pieces. So Slayton could be one of those guys that could be a potential league, a playoff winner if all remains the same.
Yeah, absolutely could be. He's been good.
He's been very good.
Darius Guy's 38.4% owned. This just goes back to the last 2 weeks. He's coming off of injury. If you're looking for somebody that can make a splash, there's not a whole lot out there on the running back waiver wire, barring injury.
38% owned. That's fucking nuts, man.
So
come on, folks out there. What the hell are you doing?
Just jump out there and grab him. It's worth a shot, right?
Yeah, okay.
He's the number 2 pick.
Yeah.
And you haven't gotten to see what he can do yet. All right, Zach Pascal for you.
All right, so I got to pull up Zach Pascal's PFF here as I fumble fuck through this. Pascal has clearly taken over as the number 1 spot. We talked about him last week in my starting section. While he didn't produce a lot of points last week, 7 tied for his season high. The production didn't come from it, but that's what you kind of want to see from a player that you're picking up and hopefully can get going again. Jacksonville, Houston, Tennessee matchup he has coming up. Well, they're not great matchups as Indy continues to try to ride this kind of streak here with Brissett out and hopefully getting Brissett back this week. I think they're still in second place or tied for first with Houston in the standings. So they're without T.Y. Hilton, they've kind of leaned on Zach Pascal more. Yes, to lean on the Titans as well, but Pascal has kind of taken that number one spot over, and owning a number one receiver, at least having one rostered, is always a good thing.
All right. I've got two because you filled in two, and there's a third one. There's a guy that just jumped out tonight that we need to talk about. So, first off, James Washington, 18.3% owned. He had a good game and had a chance at an even bigger game. I think he was 6 for 91. But he had a chance, a couple drops, to put up an absolute monster game in this one. Just 18.3% owned. He gets Cleveland, Cincinnati, and Arizona. And with Juju there, he's not drawing top coverage. Those are 4 juicy matchups coming up to where James Washington's a guy that could end up being a league winner for you. And then the other guy I feel like we need to talk about that I know is not that owned, Jacob Hollister is 7 for 58 and 1 tonight, coming off of a 2-touchdown week last week. He seems to be filling in right where Will Dissly left off. So
yeah, he's that's just, I'm not shocked at all by this, just with how good Wilson has generally been with his tight ends and how much trust he seems to have in them.
Yep. He did flash a little bit in New England when he was given the chance. So the fact that he's performing consistently as a tight end, Jacob Hollister, there's another name for you.
Let's throw out Deebo Samuel.
Yeah, Deebo Samuel also having a good night if we're going to throw another one out there.
I mean,
he's 6 for 78 after Sanders got hurt last I looked.
Yeah, he's 8 for 112 right now for his game total. I don't know how many on 10 targets. So he's got his first target game. If Sanders is to miss multiple, if he is to miss multiple games, Cardinals, Green Bay, Baltimore, Saints, Falcons, Rams, not the best playoff schedule, but
not the worst either. That was one of them I looked at and was pretty indifferent on. So
yeah.
All right, looking at cuts. I got AJ Green just simply because I don't think he plays another down. So if you need the roster spot, just stop holding it. If he does play, might be your championship week, might be otherwise. Either way, I think AJ Green is pretty done here.
Yeah, I think he's definitely, like, he may play. I keep saying that, but I don't know how much you're going to get from him. You may get one game, and you're not playing him probably when he plays.
I need 0.3 of a point from Russell Wilson.
Game update. They were on the 5 of Seattle was on the San Francisco 5, and Wilson throws a pick.
I probably need more than 0.3 of a point from Russell Wilson.
Oh my God! I hope this ends in a tie.
Damn it, Russell Wilson.
Jesus Christ.
0.3 of a freaking point, Russell Wilson. Get the ball back. 4 minutes left, Russell Wilson. Come on, you can undo that. That pick, actually, if that already registered, might cost me the game. Hold on.
Oh. Depends if San Francisco
on. Yep, that registered all right. If San Francisco wins, that interception just cost me.
And they're on Seattle 45, third down. Anyway,
LaShawn McCoy.
I may end up retracting this, but there is some merit to this. 71.1% owned, so he's probably rostered.
We went bold with this one.
Yeah. My point is this: when you see him scratching as a healthy scratch, and yes, you can buy into what Andy Reid's saying that they want to protect him down the stretch. I still think there's some BS to that. There is some merit if he's been banged up, I think, since week 1. I think when all the running backs got hurt. But this team doesn't have this division quite in hand just yet. That down the stretch has got to start sooner than later, especially when their next 2 games are against the Chargers and the Raiders. I'm not ready to buy into this backfield. I think if McCoy comes back and healthy, just murks it up even more. And for someone who likes to play, who tries to be more 40 chess when it comes to the later part of the season, McCoy is a candidate that you could probably drop and let somebody else pick him up and deal with the headache of maybe playing him or not, while he ends up throwing up duds anyways. That's kind of where I'm at with McCoy at this point, and with both running backs, even including Damian Williams almost. If McCoy is actually going to play again this season, I think he could be someone that you could, decoy drop and let somebody else deal with it.
Yep. All right, Jalen Samuels, 82.8%. My faith in Jalen Samuels died when they started using some guy with 2 last names that I'd never even come close to hearing of.
Who was that?
I don't even remember at this point, honestly. Hold on. I got to try to figure this out now.
No, I got it. You can just keep talking.
You got it? All right.
Yeah, I'll look it up.
I don't have another reason for that other than the fact that he wasn't used in what should have been a premium matchup where the volume should have been there. He wasn't used, and he's been absolutely terrible on the ground this season, really. He's averaging just 2.2 yards per attempt, 40 rushes, 89 yards and a touchdown, but 2.2 yards per attempt. I said it coming out when he came out of college when we watched his film, and everybody thought that he was going to overtake James Conner, that he didn't look that good as a runner. He kind of bounced around in more of an H-back tight end role in college and played 3 different positions, and he looks better as a receiver, really, than a runner. So, I don't think that he's even going to have that much work once Conner gets back. He had a chance to show out, and he just hasn't really done anything efficiently this season.
Tony Brooks James.
That's it.
Is the other running back. I will say this about Samuels. 7 targets. I think he had 13 last week, or some his third number. We like floor. Or like from our pass catching backs, we like to see that they're getting an opportunity in the game. He's not going to get it once James Conner comes back. He's easily worth dropping. Or at least, like, I don't know if we want to drop him outright just yet, because if Conner ends up getting banged up again, Samuel at least gives you a floor. Like, you don't play Samuel because you think he's going to get 100 yards rushing. You play him because you expect him to almost see at least 7 targets in a game, especially with how bad the offense has looked. But again, you're in that playoff, like, we're in that playoff stretch, and you got to start making some bold calls. And
so if you want 3 receptions on 7 targets for 40 yards,
well,
Jalen Samuels is your guy.
Yeah, I'm not saying it was. I'm not. Hey, again,
if you want 6 points worth of floor,
right process, wrong results. We've been saying that all year round. It's good to see 7 targets. It's bad to see 3 catches. But last week paid off for you if you played him last week.
Yep, 83 scrimmage yards is his best performance. He has been much better in the receiving game. His 2 nice games from scrimmage yards have been on 50-plus yard receiving efforts. He's destined to be a much larger James White.
He's James White light. And by light, I mean by larger, but light in actual value.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, is it my turn?
Yeah, Robbie Anderson.
Robbie Anderson. Well, he hasn't been overtaken in terms of snaps. I think the Darnold, the Anderson dream has kindly been put to rest. Now he didn't have Sam Darnold for the majority part of the season so far, but since Darnold's been back, it's just been a bit ugly. There was some encouragement against Dallas and New England. He had 8 targets, but his targets have steadily gone down each and every week, 6, 4, and 3 against Jacksonville, Miami, the Giants. When you have 2 juicy matchups against the Dolphins and the Giants, and you only put up 4 and 3 targets, that screams to me that you're just not quite trustable. And what you're kind of hoping for, if you continue to roster them, is that they channel the inner fantasy gods of last year with the playoff run that he had. That didn't include Demaryius Thomas, Jamison Crowder, and Lev Bell. There's no need to go deep with them when you have underneath guys and guys that can effectively do the same thing that he does outside of stretch the field, but still be a deep down the target field hog. I just don't think Anderson's going to give you the floor that you want, and it's time to move on.
I'm really hoping for a Chase McLaughlin miss right now.
I want this to keep. Oh my God! Although they're going for the field goal, aren't they? Oh,
they gotta be.
Well, you can speak about
Jared Goff.
Talk about Goff again.
I don't think I really need to talk about Jared Goff again.
No, I think we're good.
I think we said enough about the Rams and Jared Goff. He has not looked good. He gets Chicago and Baltimore the next 2 weeks, and then it's easy. Watch for signs of life in those games and see if you can pick him back up or try to stream him, because at this point he's a streamer. Now, he might be a guy you pick up and hold on to for more than those 3 or for multiple weeks, but at least for the next 2 weeks. Not great matchups. Not games where it looks like he's going to explode. They got to figure themselves out. They're going up against two good pass rushes. He missed. Yes.
Also, breaking news, because I haven't been checking my phone. Tyler Lockett went into the sideline.
Yeah, I saw that a while ago.
At some point. So monitor that as this shit show keeps going.
All right, Dynasty Darlings. We don't have another drop to give you. Dynasty Darlings this week. I just wanted to give a shout out to BC Johnson. He's an undrafted free agent playing for the Vikings. It's a team that lacks wide receiver depth. They've been looking for a 3 to catch on. He was kind of rotating with targets with Laquan Treadwell opposite of Stephon Diggs as they went more Irv Smith, Kyle Rudolph in this one. Couple nice routes, couple of good grabs. They tweeted out that he was having a nice night. He's a guy that showed up, and for an undrafted free agent, he looks like he's going to stick and potentially have a chance to try to work in with Diggs and Thielen in that offense. They already know Treadwell's not the long-term answer, so if he continues to show out, he should be a guy that's on your radar and on your roster. So just wanted to give a little bit of love to undrafted free agent BC Johnson.
Shout out to the Vikings and being able to find the talent and then develop said talent, because your top 2 receivers, a 5th-round pick, and an undrafted free agent. And we can speak to lanes of how good Stephon Diggs and Thielen are. So
yes,
shout out to them too.
Absolutely can. They've not found a lot of wide receivers, but they found some good ones. So
yep.
All right, Russell Wilson, don't screw up. I need 0.3 of a point.
You need one pass. You need a run.
One pass or a run.
All right.
All right. Anyway, we're done. We can wrap this up. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back on Wednesday. Beerfield Fantasy Football on YouTube, Beerfield FF on Twitter. I am at Hot BFF with 2 P's. He is at Thury BFF with 2 F's. Chris and Dan, by the way, so we can be on a first name basis because we don't do that a whole lot anymore. We'll catch you Wednesday.
See ya.